You really believed this was from God. You felt the excitement, the butterflies, the late night conversations that made you think, this is it. You pictured a future. You thanked God for finally bringing someone into your life. But when the noise faded and you were alone with your thoughts, there was a quiet discomfort you couldn't explain. You tried to silence that feeling. You told yourself you were overthinking. You prayed harder, hoping the anxiety would disappear. But instead of peace growing stronger, it slowly became harder to breathe around them. Conversations felt heavier, smiles felt forced, and deep down, your spirit felt tired instead of safe. Then the strange things started happening. Plans kept falling apart. Messages were misunderstood. Small issues became big ones. It felt like you were pushing a door that simply would not open no matter how hard you tried. And the more you forced it, the more drained you felt. What if those obstacles were not rejection? What if they were protection? What if God was gently removing someone from your life because He sees the pain you cannot see yet? The first thing that begins to happen when God does not want you with someone is this. Your peace slowly starts to leave. It does not disappear overnight. It fades gently, almost quietly, until one day you realize you are no longer resting in the relationship. You are surviving it. At the beginning, everything felt exciting. You smiled more. You felt chosen. You believed this connection was an answered prayer. But as time passed, something shifted inside you. You could not explain it clearly, but your heart no longer felt steady. Instead of calm, there was tension. Instead of security, there was uncertainty. You started overthinking simple conversations. You replayed messages in your mind while driving, while working, even while trying to sleep. A small change in their tone affected your entire mood. You became more anxious than peaceful. When your phone lit up, your heart raced, not from joy, but from nervousness, as if you were waiting for something to go wrong. Peace is one of the main ways God confirms something. When a relationship is aligned with Him, even problems do not steal your stability. There is calm underneath the struggle. You may disagree, you may grow, you may learn, but you still feel safe. But when He is gently closing a door, your spirit feels restless. You cannot fully relax around that person anymore. Something inside you stays guarded, like your heart is bracing for impact. You try to fix it. You try to be more patient, more understanding, more loving. You silence your concerns because you do not want to lose them. You blame yourself for feeling unsettled. You tell yourself love requires sacrifice. But sacrifice should not cost you your peace every single day. Love from God does not leave you constantly confused. Over time, you notice you feel emotionally tired after spending time together. Instead of feeling refreshed, you feel drained. You need space to recover. You begin craving silence more than conversation. Your laughter feels thinner. Your smile fades faster. And you start wondering when things became this heavy. You pray about it, asking God for clarity. And instead of a strong yes, you feel a quiet hesitation. Not fear, not panic. Just a gentle nudge in your spirit that something is not right. The peace you once felt at the beginning is no longer there. And deep down, you know peace does not disappear without a reason. This loss of peace is not random. It is not weakness. It is not you being dramatic. It is often the first layer of protection. God removes peace before He removes the person. He allows your heart to sense the instability, so you will not build your future on something that cannot hold it. And the longer you ignore that signal, the heavier your heart becomes. The second thing that begins to happen when God does not want you with someone is constant obstacles. Not small normal challenges, but repeated roadblocks that make you stop and wonder. Plans fall apart at the last minute. Conversations turn into misunderstandings. Timing never seems to align no matter how hard you try. At first, you think it is coincidence. You tell yourself every relationship has problems. But The pattern keeps repeating. Every time things start to feel stable, something unexpected happens and pulls you apart again. It feels like you are trying to push open a door that quietly keeps closing. You make plans to see each other and something cancels. You try to talk through issues and the conversation becomes cold. You attempt to move forward, but somehow you end up back in the same place. It feels like walking in circles. No matter how sincere your effort is, progress never stays. When something is meant for you, it may require effort, but it will not require constant force. God can test you, but He does not confuse you endlessly. When He is leading you towards someone, doors may open slowly, but they open with peace. When He is protecting you, doors close no matter how hard you push. You begin to feel tired from trying. You start praying for breakthrough, but instead of breakthrough, you receive distance. You ask God to fix it, but instead of repair, things become clearer in a painful way. It is not that God is ignoring you. It may be that He is answering you differently than you expected. Sometimes those repeated obstacles are mercy. God sees the future arguments you cannot see. He sees the emotional damage you would carry. He sees the version of yourself you might lose if you stay. So He disrupts the connection now to protect your heart later. But because you are attached, it feels like rejection instead of rescue. It feels like failure instead of guidance. You question your worth. You wonder why things cannot just work. And in that confusion, you forget that closed doors are also direction. The constant obstacles are not random chaos. They are signals. They are gentle interruptions from a God who loves you too much to let you build your life on the wrong foundation. And if every step forward feels blocked, maybe it is not meant to be forced at all. The third thing that begins to happen when God does not want you with someone is distance. Not always physical distance. Sometimes it is emotional, spiritual, a quiet separation that grows even while you are still talking every day. You notice the connection does not feel as deep as it once did. Conversations that used to flow now feel forced. Silence feels longer. Laughter feels lighter. You start realizing that even when you are together, you somehow feel alone. It confuses you because nothing dramatic happened. There was no huge betrayal, no explosive argument, just a slow emotional drifting. The warmth you once felt begins to cool. The excitement fades. And instead of growing closer, you feel like two people standing on opposite sides of an invisible wall. When God removes someone from your future, He often removes the emotional glue first. He begins to detach your heart slowly, so the separation will not destroy you later. What once felt magnetic now feels ordinary. What once felt exciting now feels uncertain. You may try to bring the closeness back. You plan deeper conversations. You open your heart more. You give more effort, but something does not connect the way it used to. It feels like you are reaching for someone who is already stepping away. And then you notice something deeper. Your spiritual focus begins to shift. You start praying more alone. You feel drawn back to God in a stronger way. It is almost as if your heart is being redirected. Instead of dreaming about a future with them, you begin questioning whether they were ever meant to be part of it. This distance is painful because attachment does not disappear overnight. You still care. You still remember the good moments. But the emotional bond feels thinner, like a thread that is slowly loosening. And deep down, you sense that God is gently untangling your heart. Distance is not always rejection. Sometimes it is preparation. God creates space where you are holding too tightly. He separates what you are emotionally attached to so you can see clearly again. And when that quiet drifting begins, it may not be the relationship fading on its own. It may be God gently leading you out before the damage becomes deeper. The fourth thing that begins to happen when God does not want you with someone is exposure. Things you once ignored become impossible to overlook. Red flags you excused suddenly feel louder. Patterns you justified start revealing themselves clearly. At first, you defended them. You told yourself nobody is perfect. You explained their behavior to your friends. You convinced your own heart to be patient. But slowly, God begins to remove the blinders. You start seeing the relationship without emotional filters. You notice inconsistencies. Words do not match actions. Promises are delayed. Effort feels one-sided. You begin asking yourself questions you were afraid to ask before. Why am I always the one adjusting? Why do I feel small after certain conversations? Why does loving them feel like losing parts of myself? God does not always remove someone instantly. Sometimes He reveals truth slowly, so your heart can accept it. He allows patterns to repeat so you can see them clearly. He lets certain situations unfold so you cannot deny what is right in front of you. The more clarity you receive, the harder it becomes to pretend everything is fine. You feel conviction, not condemnation. There is a difference. Condemnation pushes you into shame. Conviction gently pulls you toward truth. And truth can be uncomfortable when your heart is attached. You start realizing that you are holding on to potential instead of reality. You were loving who they could become instead of accepting who they are right now. And deep inside, you sense that God is asking you to stop ignoring what He is showing you. Exposure is painful because it removes illusion. It forces you to choose between comfort and obedience. Staying feels familiar. Leaving feels uncertain. But when God reveals something clearly, ignoring it only leads to deeper hurt. You begin to feel a shift in your courage. Fear of losing them slowly turns into fear of losing yourself. And that shift matters, because when God exposes truth, it is not to shame you. It is to save you from a future that would cost you more than you realize. When clarity becomes stronger than attachment, you know something is changing. And that change is often the final preparation before God closes a door you were too afraid to close yourself. The fifth thing that begins to happen when God does not want you with someone is release. Not always a dramatic breakup. Not always a loud ending. Sometimes it is a quiet surrender inside your heart where you finally stop fighting what God has been trying to show you all along. You reach a point where you are simply tired. Tired of forcing. Tired of explaining. Tired of carrying something that no longer carries you. The attachment is still there, but the resistance is fading. You start realizing that holding on is costing you more than letting go ever would. You begin to pray differently. Instead of asking God to fix the relationship, you ask Him to align your heart with His will. That is a powerful shift, because now you are choosing obedience over emotion. You are choosing long-term peace over temporary comfort. It hurts. Letting go always hurts. Even when you know it is right. Even when the signs were clear. Even when the peace was gone. You still remember the good moments. You still feel the memories. But deep down, you also feel something new rising inside you. Strength. God never removes someone without purpose. When He closes one door, He protects you from years of confusion, compromise, and hidden pain. You may not see the full picture today. You may only see the loss. But heaven sees the future you are being prepared for. Slowly, your peace begins to return. Not because the pain disappears instantly, but because your spirit knows you're back in alignment. The anxiety that once followed you starts fading. The constant tension loosens. You begin to feel like yourself again. Release is not weakness. It is trust. It is believing that God can see what you cannot. It is accepting that love guided by Him will never require you to shrink, beg, or lose your peace. The right person will not need to be forced into your life. They will fit with clarity, not confusion. And maybe right now you are standing at that edge, holding on with one hand, feeling God gently asking you to let go with the other. If this message feels personal, it is not by accident. Ask Him for courage. Ask Him for clarity. Ask Him to replace your fear with faith. If this spoke to your heart, take a quiet moment today and pray honestly. And if you are learning to trust God with your relationships, stay close to Him, because sometimes the greatest act of love is letting God write your story instead of trying to control it yourself.